vil fortælle noget om gaming and apps as tool at the hospital. Så allerede af titlen fremgår det, at det foregår på engelsk. Så velkommen til, James.
Tak. I kind of got what you said then. Apologies, this is in English for everyone here. My Danish is not particularly beyond ordering beer and food, which I think is probably all you need to get by. My name is James Norwood. I'm a lecturer at University Academy Lillebelt, teaching in the multimedia education. I have a background in game development previous to this education, so I know a little bit about developing and producing games. The title, I think, is slightly misleading. I think apps is a way of delivering content. I think mobile gaming, as a general rule, is probably a better term at the hospital. So, as this is a game lab for health, I want to ask this question. Who in this room has played a console game in the last year? Can you put your hands up? Quite a few. I mean, talking like Xbox and things, yeah? Wow, okay. This is going to go completely tits up then. How many of you have played a game on a mobile? Is that everyone's hands up? Good. So, okay. The reason for asking this question is, what changed? Why are the people, there was a few people in the room who put their hands up who hadn't played a games console. So I would assume you're casual gamers nowadays. And the reason I think for this is twofold. First of all, we are born to play. It's in our DNA. It's something we do all the time as kids. When was the last time any of you guys played tag? Everyone's thinking about this. When was the last time you played tag?
Yesterday.
You played tag. Congratulations. And what did it feel like? Was it good? Yeah, it was good? Yeah? Was it with your work colleagues or with somebody else?
A child.
A child, okay. Why is that? Why as adults don't we do things as we did as children? It was enjoyable playing tag. I'm going to be playing it tomorrow with all the students. It's a great way to sort of raise your heart rate. It's enjoyable. But the reality is, we do still play games. It's just in a different sense. I love this quote from David Elkin. Creativity sponsors play, fosters healthy mental and social development. I think that's very true. I mean, you think about it. We play games when we're watching a match on TV. We're jumping up, we're shouting, going, yes, come on! Although in Denmark's case, it's not always the excitement side, it's more annoyance. I can't complain, I'm English, we never win anything. Flirting is a game, a very popular game. We all like to do that. There's another game which they even named a game. It's called Foreplay. And who doesn't like that? That's a great game to play. It gets the energy up. It's got play in the title. There's nothing to like about it. So playing games is intrinsic to what we do. We do it all the time. The mobile is just another mechanism to get access to that. There's another very important point here as well. This is almost the kind of tap, swipe, tap generation. You can play a game within 30 seconds on a mobile device or any handheld device. You're only a tap, swipe, tap away from it. You're very much location independent. You're not fixed to a set space where you have to go and play the games. Think about the locations you're playing games. You're waiting for the bus, you're in the hospital, in the waiting room. The biggest place people are playing is on the toilet. A few people are nodding, yes, you know it's true. It's not a substitute for newspaper, unfortunately. You can't wipe your bottom with them, but there's probably an app for that. But if you think about traditional gaming in terms of consoles, the process is a lot more involved. You have to really think about it and mentally go into the process. I'm going to play a game this afternoon. You go to the screen, you turn that on, you turn the console on. You have to make the mental choice of what game you're going to play, which could take forever. Then you load it in, get the menu screen up, sit through a very expensive intro movie, and then play a really rubbish game. But the point is, that is not a 30-second activity. That's a much longer process. Whereas the mobile device gives you that access where you don't have to think about it. That's why we're all playing Cut the Rope, Angry Birds, Bejeweled. I mean, who's not liking Cut the Rope, the little green frog, which looks forlorn every time it doesn't get the star? So it's not necessarily just about the nature and the length of the games, but it's more about the access to these games, which is important. Now, what do we define as mobile? Out of these devices, which one of these would you call not mobile? Anybody? Jan, which one of these is not a mobile device?
All are mobile.
All are mobile. That's such a vanilla answer. You might argue that the PC the television is a non-mobile device. It's tethered, it's fixed, you can't move it. But when we talk about mobile, it's not just about the physical device, it's also about the information and the software we're using on it. How many in this room use Google Docs? Put your hands up. So all your data's going to Google, great, they can advertise to you and use you in future. The point is, that's an example of mobile, and it's true in gaming as well in terms of your information being passed around and being accessible from different locations. We're not fixed to a set point. You also need to think, and this is getting into more about thinking about developing things of games in this area. One size doesn't fit all, and this is quite important. This is an iPotty. I saw there's an iToilet today for all those people who like to read their iPads in the toilets. Comes with a little toilet roll holder. Not sure why toilet humour is in today's talk, but it seems to have crept in there. Must be being British. But if you think about it, this device goes in your pocket. You can go running with it. You can do lots of things. iPad, not really. It's not the most flexible thing to put in your pocket. Microsoft recently termed these as couch interaction. This is where you mostly spend your interaction with a tablet device. It's sitting on a couch, sitting position, interacting. But if you're designing a game or any experience, even it just doesn't matter where it is, in healthcare especially, you need to think about what devices you're designing for and how they're going to be used. I'm going to scroll down my notes here so I make sure I get everything in. What device is the most popular used device in gaming for children? What mobile device is the most popular gaming device for children? Can anybody answer this question? I'm not going to look at Jan again. No? Anybody? Some iPad? Nope.
Game Boy.
Game Boy. 156 million units worldwide. The iPhone's only got 126 at the moment, and counting. But you've got to think about that demographic. If you're designing a game or an experience in healthcare and you want to target a particular children's demographic, you need to think, do you develop it on the iPhone or do you develop it on the Game Boy? Now, there are cost implications on both of those, but you know that your install base is going to be higher on something like a Game Boy. And also, a lot of teenagers are getting very annoyed at the moment with their parents handing down their old iPhones. That's why the iPhones have not got the cool cache any longer. So you need to think about if they're going to play on those devices. There's another point here, and it's the reason why mobile technology is so great in gaming is it's real time. So if you're developing games in a hospital, you can get data very quickly all the time. We live with these devices. How many teenagers do you think sleep with a phone under their pillow? Anybody got teenage kids in the room? Yep. Do your kids sleep with a phone underneath their pillow? Yep. It's about 80%. That's the latest survey. How many people in this room sleep with their phone by their bed? All of you, yeah. You don't want to miss those Facebook updates at 12 o'clock at night. It's very important. But the point in that Twitch response to these devices is great because you can get data all the time. And if you're trying to develop a game or something which rewards usage and you want to get the data out of it, it's a very handy device for that. Anybody know this guy? You must have had this program. You didn't have this program in Denmark. $6 billion man, Steve Irwin. It's a classic. It's good. Catch it on YouTube. But biometrics and biofeedback, I was talking to some guys earlier on. Again, this is another great way, if you can integrate these things into your games to get information. I think this comes down to the medical side of things. When you're trying to get evidence for your games, the more data you can get, the better. Obviously, you need to know where it's relevant, but if your data's there in the first place and you're collecting it, then you can do something with it. If you look at companies like Qualcomm, they're a big US chip manufacturer. They're very heavily invested in these kind of biofeedback devices. They're very cheap and they're getting cheaper, so people are starting to experiment and see what they can do in terms of interaction with them. So there are a lot of opportunities in the future, I think, in this area, and it's going to be one of the defining areas in gaming and healthcare when people start interacting with the biofeedback mechanisms and sensors. Now, in terms of the hospital, what does this mean for the hospital environment? Now, this is a very old-fashioned sense of what the hospital is going to be like. Nothing like OHO. It's a very modern and flexible environment. But I'm probably not wrong in saying that a hospital is not a very fixed environment. You have nurses going from different wards, patients in beds which have to be moved around. Clinicians are going from different operating theatres. So mobile technology makes a lot of sense. If you're in bed and you can't get up, you don't want to force them to go to a games console to play something so they can have some therapy through it. You want to take the devices to them. It also boils into this idea of patient taking control of their own medication and their own health. They can go home, they can take the apps with them, they can interact with them. So it makes a lot of sense, and I think as you see in the organizations like Rock Health in the US, they're really pushing this technology forward and trying to sort of get patients to have access to their health at all times. Now, to define games in healthcare, there are lots of development games at the moment going on around the world. And there's lots of game apps being developed. But I wanted to sort of break it down into 3 areas. Inform, encourage, distract. Now, unfortunately, I just realized IED stands for Improvised Explosive Device, which is probably not quite appropriate. But if I can break these down, you can see some examples of what I'm talking about. So, informing an app, a game app which informs, we're talking about education, managing of your health, training, monitoring, solving, all of these areas. There's some really good initiatives in Africa in terms of very low-level mobile gaming, sort of help manage things like worms and understanding the things, pregnancy as well. The great thing about games is you can strip away language from them. So you can communicate to a much wider audience, and that's a real good benefit of gaming. This is kind of a poster child. Have anybody seen this game before? It's called Remission. It's by a lady called Pam Cato from the Netherlands. It's got a AAA budget in terms of game development. It was one of the first full-on 3D health-based games. It has clinical evidence behind it. I think they probably spent double the budget on clinical evidence as they did actually producing and making this game. It's for children with cancer, and it's to help them understand their condition and what taking the drugs helps them to do. So it's a way for them to manage their condition, essentially. So it's about informing. Another project, and this is, came out of I believe, the Rock Health incubating program in the US at the moment. This is called Gecko Cap. This is for asthma inhalers for children. They can track the parents and the doctors can track the child and how they're using the inhaler. They have this lovely little mascot here, so the children, it's not a scary graph-based environment. So again, it's all about informing, keeping parents and patients informed and doctors informed at the same time. And it's a kind of gamification and monitoring. Another project, which I just recently saw down in Abu Dhabi, this is called a Prognosis app, and this is for clinicians. And it's for clinicians on the move, and it's a way for them to test cases from a prognosis perspective. It's a really nice little initiative. I know they've customized and sold it to a couple of the US hospitals, but it's another example. It doesn't have to be just about the patient. It can also be about training and learning. And making a gamified version of that sometimes is much more interesting than sitting through lots of boring documents and papers. The information comes in quicker. It's accessible, as I said, all the time. You can do it on the bus, or you can do it in the loo, wherever you want to do it. The other part, encourage. Now, we've seen a lot of these kind of motivational apps out there, and not a lot of them have clinical evidence attached to them, but they're becoming more and more popular. And in fact, if you look at the iTunes store under health, you'll see a lot of those there. The first one I want to show you is a thing by a company called Ayogo, who are doing some brilliant work in this area of games and healthcare. They're a Canadian-based company. They developed this game, actually, which sits on top of a diabetes kind of app called Blue Loop, which is a way of inputting your data about your condition daily. And it's basically turns what is a very dry interface into a much more kid-friendly environment. So you collect monsters, they call them piñatas. Your parents can give you them. So it gamifies the experience of actually having to do your routine with diabetes. And it makes it a bit more fun and friendly and less scary. So that's a good example. That's in trials at the moment in the US. It's worth looking at Ayogo's website. There's some great papers on the stuff they're doing. So that's a good one to follow. How many of you guys know this? Nike Fuel Band. Okay, this is mostly fitness and health, I guess you could get down to that level. This, in a sense, can have a negative effect. So if you're trying to motivate yourself to lose weight or do exercise, something like Night Fuel might not work for certain sectors of the population, because if you log into your software, it can show your graph doing, yes, I'm doing brilliantly, I've done my exercise, and then you go on a binger, you have lots of alcohol, you go on a holiday, you sit on the beach, you come back, and your graph drops right down to the floor, and you go, oh, this is terrible. I'm never going to get there up again. Some people like that. They see that as motivating. Other people, it's not so good. So there are other ways of motivating in terms of fitness and health. This is a great, does anybody know Figure Runner? Yeah? That was, I think that's in Sweden, someone drew a little monster. The idea of the app is you start it, you run, and you draw a picture. And you can share it with people. So you have this kind of group dynamic, it's great. You're not necessarily watching the statistics of health going up and how many calories you're burning, you're just creating art. So you could, in theory, cheat. You could just jump in a car and drive around, but that defeats the purpose of the fun of it. There's a little Superman in London. I recommend somebody does something in Odense. I haven't seen anything yet from Odense. I was trying to do it yesterday, but I failed. I thought I'd do a game lab for health around my streets, but I couldn't figure out the route. So if you see any cats coming, that'll be probably me. But that's another example where gameplay doesn't have to be about exact monitoring. There can be this kind of social game aspect to it. Just previously back to the Nike Fuel Band, which has been interesting. They've just opened up the APIs to this device. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this in a few years' time, where device manufacturers open up the accessibility to these monitoring devices so people can hack these things together. And what it means for healthcare, it means that people will come up with things which we've not thought about for conditions they may have. So it's going to be interesting to see what people do with the Fuel Band in terms of the monitoring. The last one, I'll skip here, is to distract. I said to people I get a cat in there somewhere. Kind of grumpy and cute, isn't it? Gameplays with distract. I think there's been studies about how games help children with depression. It's well known that they can help children with depression, but there's other areas which I think are quite interesting. There's a project which deals with pain management, and this is called Snow World. It's tried in, I think, in the US, help patients with burns. They found that immersing a patient in a kind of a virtual reality experience in effectively a snowy kind of environment helps reduce their pain when they're having their treatments. Now, this at the moment is quite an expensive setup because they've got very expensive VR goggles. There's a company called Oculus Rift coming out, I think next year. They're bringing out a full 180-degree stereoscopic, low latency VR headset for about £1,000 to the market. Now that's great if you've got patients who are bedbound, who want to have an experience to sort of get out of themselves. You can connect it up to a mobile device. It's a lot more flexible. You don't have to go to a clinic to try this technology out. So the cheaper these technology gets, the more possibilities we have for patients, I think.